Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're at about 15 seconds ahead of time, so I figure we'll just go ahead and begin if that's all right with you. So let's get this party started. My name is Larry Stegall, and we are going to be talking about zero-touch deployment as well as other elements within the Jamf School infrastructure. If you're looking for the session on winning in sports betting, I don't think that's available today. So. Come on, Mr. Remote. There we go. So today's presenters, I'm Larry Stegall. My QR code links to my LinkedIn page. You're more than welcome to scan it. Connect with me if you wish. My background is I am a senior sales engineer here at Jamf. I work in the K-12 division. I've been a Mac administrator since the early 1990s, so I've lived through operating systems, processors, all sorts of things. One of my colleagues today is Nick Koval. Nick's over here to the side. Nick works in our education division. If any of you have taken professional certification courses and you've been fortunate, Nick's been your instructor. The man is absolutely brilliant. And our third presenter today is Matt Cooper. Matt Cooper is the official title for Matt is the Business Development Director for a company called Cambrionix. And I'm not going to steal his thunder, but he's going to be talking to you about how their solution fits in with our subject matter today. So what is zero-touch deployment? Why is it so important? We need to get away from the original architecture of bringing everything into a central location, preparing it and setting it up on a shelf and waiting for users to need it. We want to get those resources in the hands of users as quickly as possible. In the past, this was not an easy task within Jamf School, but beginning in Q4 of 2024, we provided some solutions that give you this capability. But if we can, we should do some prep work. Do any of you ever do prep work for your devices ahead of time? Well, let's think about what I mean by prep work. Let's go ahead and do imaging, right? Imaging is the best solution on the planet. Does everybody agree with that? How many of you still image? Block imaging. You remember that with Deploy Studio? Apple actually turned that away from us about 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago. We can't do that anymore. Well, actually, it's even longer than that, Nick. It's almost 10. Because of the OS design. Imaging is dead. No to imaging. What we want to do is a term you'll hear is called provisioning, where we're taking the client, we're pulling a device off, and we're customizing it to fit the needs of that user. And I'd like to turn this over right now, just for a moment, to my wonderful colleague, Matt Cooper, who's going to talk to you on how the solution from Cambrionix fits in with preparation work. So, if you don't mind, Matt.
Thanks. Thanks, Larry. Thanks for not stealing my 2 minutes of thunder here. But thank you all for first signing up for the session. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to talk about Cambrionix briefly. This is like a little bit of a commercial break here. You can come by our booth at booth 814 to learn a lot more, go deeper dive. But a little bit about me. I was in the education sales space for about 18 years, nearly 20 years at Apple in the education space. So I know the pain points that a lot of districts faced when it came to the imaging, now deploying and provisioning devices. There's always a bottleneck, how many you can do at any given time. And so what I'm holding right here is a ThunderSync 5C16. It's a 16-port USB-C hub. It's the fastest one in the universe, actually, because it's up in the space station. But it's a hub that allows you to sync and provision 16 and restore 16 devices in under about 10 minutes. At one time, plugged into a host computer, host Mac Mini Pro, MacBook Pro. But this device, and also go into DFU mode. You could put 16 Macs in a DFU mode with one touch, and you could do it remotely too with Cambrionix Connect software. So that's a lot I could totally unpack, but really you came here to listen to Larry and Nick. But if you want to, come by the booth later as well, because we're also going to do, you can register to receive one of these. Somebody can win one. And we have a few other really nice things to talk about as well. And the last thing I would want to leave with you is we just officially got on the Apple Education price list to make it super easy for you to buy our hubs as part of your solution. And that'll be available at the end of this month. You should be able to work with your Apple salesperson and get one of these hubs. And we created 2 unique part numbers for a 10-port and a 16-port. And those will come with a 4-year warranty, 4-year support, and 4-year software license. So come see us at 8:14. And oh, by the way, I've got a brain date tomorrow at, I think it's 1:30, if you want to learn more there too. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate your time. Larry, back to you.
Yeah, much appreciated, Mac. So, and first of all, isn't the best thing you heard a salesperson talk for only 5 or 10 minutes and they didn't ask for any money from you? It's a good deal. So, why do we want to do something like that? I want you to think that your 18-wheeler has just backed up in your district with all these brand new MacBooks. What operating system is on them? Do you know? How long have they been sitting in a warehouse? And how long does it take to update, not upgrade, but just update an operating system? Is that time that you could capture better somewhere else? Well, that's where that solution comes in, is we can literally plug multiple devices in, erase them, put the IPSW of our choice on the device, and then get it in the hands of our users in a quick fashion. One of the tools that we use in this process is a tool called Mist. Are any of you familiar with Mist? If not, you will love it. Am I correct, sir? It is a great tool. It is a tool which is available for you. It's an open source tool, and it allows you to download installers or IPSWs for macOS operating systems. Why is that a big thing? How many of you have ever had to use Configurator and download something? Configurator is super fast, isn't it, on restoring a MacBook? To give you a case in point, one of my colleagues needed to restore 30 MacBooks. He came by and he asked to borrow our Cambrionix hub. He was terrified it was going to take him all evening. He was able to do 30 in under 35 to 40 minutes. And now they're ready for use for that user. And we had the IPSW downloaded with 26.01. So they have the latest on it, and those are ready now to be brought into whatever MDM we choose. Again, Mist is open source. It's a great tool. I suggest you use it. And if you're like me, I do contribute to open source developers. Now, why do I suggest this approach about taking a computer out of a box? Because zero-touch deployment means that IT does nothing with it. Well, I want to make sure that when my users are ready to begin, they have the latest and they have the greatest. So, again, we want that latest version of the macOS on that client. Why? Because macOS gets updated, folks, because of security. Can anybody guess? Read the release notes on 2601. They deal with vulnerabilities. And again, even though we're in education, we have to be conscious of security and making sure our devices are safe and secure for our end users. Restore is your friend. It's also great if you're repurposing a machine. You don't want to hand out a machine that may have some other user's data on it. You want that next user to have the same advantage the previous user had. We also may want to remove apps from the machine. When Apple ships devices, they ship things like iMovie and Pages and Keynote and Numbers. And when we have those on the device and we're starting to manage them, we have a problem because we can't manage that application as easily as we could if we deployed it from a solution like Jamf School. So again, we're starting fresh. We're cleaning everything off. Has anybody ever seen a screen like this? By the way, I finished my presentation the 1st of September, and then what does Apple do at the middle of September? They drop OS 26. I had to re-record all of my screen records. I didn't want to, but Nick Koval said I had to. So, the other part I want to share with you, this is not edited. This is literally recorded off a Mac Mini at my home office. So I bet you've seen this kind of screen before. Your users are going through it. they're going to go ahead and they're going to enroll their device into Jamf School. But not only are they going to enroll their device, we're going to make sure we put some resources on that device. Resources like endpoint protection before the user ever logs in, content filtering before the user ever logs in, and our IDP solution, Jamf Connect, because we want them to use Jamf Connect to log in, because we're using Jamf Connect to decide, are they a standard user? Are they an administrator? So now we're going through, and I bet you all have seen this screen before, correct? But what's going on in the background you don't see during the macOS setup process is we're actually installing software before the user ever touches the device. So again, when that user logs in for that first time, they have endpoint security. They have content filtering. When I worked for a school district, I worked for an extremely conservative school district. We were not allowed to deploy equipment to staff or to students unless our content filter had been installed and had been properly configured. And we didn't want to do it in our depots. We've gone through the process. We've enabled location services. And now we see the welcome screen. Pretty slick, huh? Now watch this. And now we have Jamf Connect. The user has not touched it. They're ready to go. The user logs in. I will be able to assign them as a standard user or as a regular user. Pretty nice solution, right? How do we get there? Well, you're very familiar with our configuration profiles, our automatic device enrollment profile. Going through, you can still go through like you've normally done in the past, skipping the steps that are not necessary for the user. You can go in and create, and by the way, the password, I don't use that. I did this screen specially for you guys, so don't try it on my equipment, sign in with Jamf Setup, it doesn't work. And even the onboarding, if you wanted to do something there. But now we have the ability to deploy out up to 5 configuration profiles and 5 packages. Now think about that. Now, I do not suggest that when you're deploying out systems, in this case, that you install the Microsoft Office suite. Can anybody guess why? The term big is an understatement, sir. Microsoft has a very large footprint. What you need to do is get the resources in as quickly as possible. So literally, upload your profiles into your Jamf School instance, update and upload the packages into Jamf School instance, and now you hit the button, they're ready to roll. You assign the profile, everything is good and everything is easy. But you know what? You strike me as a very smart group of people. You want something more, correct? Well, guess what? We have something called Jamf Setup Manager. Have any of you ever seen Jamf Setup Manager? Are any of you using tools like DEP Notify or are familiar with that tool? We want to tell the user what we're doing during the enrollment process. Can anybody tell me, why do we want the user to know we're installing software during enrollment? We don't do what, sir? This man has it down. He said they don't close the laptop during the enrollment process because what happens? You may have a partial installation. It may be corrupted, things like that. If teachers don't see what's going on, what are they going to do? They're going to close the lid. What if you have somebody in a lab that you want to make sure the software is being installed? Wait, do you really want them to log into 30 different machines and make sure everything is there? No. This is a QR code for Jamf Setup Manager. It is actually on a GitHub repository within Jamf. The developer is a gentleman by the name of Armin Briegel. Armin is absolutely phenomenal. Are any of you on Mac Admin Slack? If you are on a Mac Admin Slack, there is a channel devoted to Jamf Setup Manager, and Armin regularly monitors that channel. Again, we've seen this screen before, right? But now, let's see what it looks like with something new. We're going through the process. We're getting all the ever-popular hellos. We get to pick our language. One time I was thinking about just picking one that's not English and seeing if anybody noticed. Who knows? We're going to go through this process. Now realize, this is in real time. This is not accelerated. This is not edited. Now, the only reason you did not see the network selection, this Mini was plugged in by Ethernet copper, because unfortunately, at my home office, the people in my neighborhood, their SSIDs are, shall we say, a little bit interesting for names. So now we're going through this process, and you've seen this before, right? But we're going to add another layer to it. We're going to make it a little bit more informative for the end user. So we actually now have to install an application, and that application is Jamf Setup Manager. And we have to put some settings in Jamf Setup Manager, and those are done with configuration profiles. Is anybody in here a good scripter? My heart goes out to you guys. I'm the person that takes somebody else's scripts, modifies them, and makes them mine. I do not write scripts from scratch. Nick is a phenomenal scripter, not Larry. Now notice, I branded it with a Jamf. I'm giving it a welcome. And now I'm telling the user what I'm doing. I'm installing Jamf Connect. I'm installing Jamf Protect. I'm installing content filtering. I'm going to install Google Chrome. Now, my standard joke where Google Chrome is concerned, oh, today's Tuesday, right? We may need to update Google Chrome. How many times have you updated Chrome? It seems like every other day, because Google is constantly dealing with security issues. And it's going through and it's doing all of these things. Now, the cool part is, at the back end of this tool is a resource called Installomator. Are any of you familiar with Installomator? Installomator is a wonderful tool. It has access to over 1,000 applications. And this version of Google Chrome is being pulled down directly from Alphabet. It is the latest build. So I don't have to worry about updates. When I hand this person this laptop or they begin their work, I want them to have the latest and the greatest. The very last thing you saw was Jamf Student software. That's actually coming down from an MDM command, and the tool has the ability to make sure that application's been installed before the user leaves. Why do I want to have and make sure that Jamf Student or Jamf Teacher is installed on a MacBook? Because that's how I distribute my software. I want my people to be able to, in an on-demand situation, go in and they say, I don't use Pages, I use Word. They can go into their Jamf Teacher or Jamf Student, push the button, and install it themselves. I don't want to dictate what they have to do. Less than 3 minutes, you're at the macOS login screen. This user is ready to begin their day. How is this all achieved? This is achieved by using a tool called the iMazing Profile Editor. Are any of you familiar with the iMazing Profile Editor? If not, I suggest you get it. It is one of the best tools you can have because it allows you to build profiles that your MDM or your management system may not have. It's great for working within Jamf Pro and within Jamf School. Now notice, I was able to sit there and tell it, I want this to be, welcome to your MacBook. I told it it wanted to have a special icon, that Jamf icon. I can refer to icons online. I can refer to icons on the device. I have to make sure that they are readily accessible and are not behind a password. I can even allow and use, if you'll notice the background image, I installed the background image before that ran. I actually made a folder with all of my necessary images, and I put it into the shared folder of the device, and now I can reference that easily. And now, how did I build it? Well, the very first one, I did Jamf Protect Endpoint Protection. And I'm relying on the client through an install command to go ahead and install Jamf Protect, and I'm telling it, there's that watch path. Don't go further until Protect is installed. A watch path makes sure software is installed. The same with Jamf Connect. So those can actually be install commands that you've put into Jamf School. For my content filtering for Jamf Safe Internet on a macOS, it's just a configuration profile. It'll take about 2 seconds to install on the client. But I want to sit there and I want to have it wait 20 seconds, and I want my customers to know We're installing Content Filter. And by the way, those labels, those can be customized to anything you want. Google Chrome, this is where, coming in with a tool like Installomator, I can actually use the Installomator label, which is Google Chrome PKG, and that's going to pull down the latest result. And then the last one is the application that's deployed by MDM. And again, very similar to the way that we approached the first way for zero-touch deployment, we have the same capability. We can do up to 5 packages and 5 profiles. So we set up our deployment. We go ahead and go through and set up our accounts if we wish. I decided I wasn't going to give you my real, that's why I blurred it. And then we have the ability. Notice my profiles, Jamf Setup Manager, Jamf Connect, and then the in-house packages. I can even deploy in-house packages with it, up to 5. You want to make sure your configuration profiles come through. Bit of advice, if you install a configuration profile in this method, you will need to create a smart group in Jamf School and make sure that profile gets deposited. Why? Because as soon as your device is enrolled in Jamf School, it's going to say, I didn't install that device, that was installed before management, and Jamf School is going to pull it off. So you'll need to make sure of that. But other than that, it's that level of deployment. And it makes it super, super easy. So optimizing for performance or troubleshooting, any packages used during ADE should be the latest version that you tested and certified. Number 1. Number 2, if Jamf Setup Manager does not load as expected, only install the PKG for Jamf Setup Manager and that profile. And that way you can make sure everything is operating as expected. Again, where troubleshooting is concerned, I learned these lessons from my stepfather when I was a kid. It's one layer at a time. For those of you that are old hooligans like me, if you remember something called the OSI model, you start on the basic and you build up. You always start with the basic levels first. As you address those basic levels, then you move forward. Use the labels in the JSM profile or have Jamf School install the packages and profiles as part of your standard workflow. You can use the app installers if you wish or packages of your own choosing to upload. Watch paths are great because those are things that are coming down from books and apps and other things to make sure those applications are resident. If graphics don't load, make sure they're not behind some kind of a gate requiring a login to get to them, or package those graphics up and deposit them on the client. And again, as I said, make sure you have a smart group where all of your profiles are resident. So that's basically the zero-touch deployment. It's a very easy process. The tools are there, and where using a tool like iMazing, you can do some basic functionality. As with everything, test, 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 and when you're positive, what should you do one more time? Test again. So now we've got our clients with their MacBooks. We've given them the latest and the greatest. Is our job done? If it is, can I come to work for you? No, because we have to ensure that we maintain integrity. And this is where my wonderful colleague, Nick, comes in. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Nick Koval.
Thanks, Larry. Appreciate it. Alrighty. So thank you, Larry, for inviting me to join in on your presentation here. I really appreciate that. As Larry mentioned, great, we've got all the apps on the device, but unfortunately that doesn't really finish it, right? We still have to go through and install more stuff, right? Larry mentioned we can only do 5 apps at a time at some of those things. That's it. And we don't want that user sitting there all day because we chose to install Microsoft Office or Adobe or any of those other really large things. We want to do those down the line. So how do we deploy applications using Jamf School? Well, our first stop should always be the App Store, right? We want to get stuff from Apple directly if we can. For iOS, that's really where the story kind of stops, right? Unless we have devices that are using web clips or maybe B2B apps that you've had somebody within the district build that you're putting on that device, you're going to get it from the App Store. In the case of macOS apps, that's not where the story ends, right? Google Chrome, available for iOS. Is it available for macOS on the App Store? No. And there are security reasons for that. Google needs a little bit more access on macOS than the store can provide. Another example of that, anybody here heard of CodeRunner? If you use CodeRunner from the App Store, it behaves differently than if you use the version that came from the developer directly. Okay, so those are two examples. So as a result, we want to shoot for the App Store, right? It's pre-bundled, we can keep software up to date, which makes it really helpful. But there's an intermediate location we can look next. And that intermediate location, how many of you have heard of app installers? Okay, a couple of you, good. Now, some of you may look at this and go, Nick, and there's a benefit to being the guy with the microphone. You get to ask the first question. Nick, in my Jamf School instance, I don't see app installers. That's because app installers is a module that you can turn on. So if you're looking to turn that on, go into Organization, then go into Settings, and enable app installers, okay? Now, app installers are currently, I just looked before I came in here, 361 applications that we at Jamf keep an eye on. We go through the process, we download the app, we actually rebundle it if necessary, so that you're not on the hook for building a package out of it. How many of you like building packages? Yeah, like 3 people, exactly. And 2 of them are trainers, just saying. And the trainers in this room will tell you that building a package is more art than it is a science. We can give you a set to follow, but anyways. So those 361 apps that are in the App Installers catalog, we as Jamf go through and make sure that it's built correctly, it installs correctly, and it works once you install the app. It also leverages the Apple push notification system, which we know is already working in your environment if you're deploying configuration profiles and apps from the App Store, okay? So, great, that's another option for us. Well, what if it's not on the App Store? What if it's not in that list of 361 items? Okay, what do we do next? Well, this is where, as Larry mentioned, Installomator comes in. Now, I'm going to skip ahead to this slide, which is actually the link for Installomator. But I will tell you right now, because as Larry mentioned, we had to have our slides in September, there was an update to Installomator. So while the picture that I showed you before was Installomator 10.7, this will actually take you to Installomator 10.8. What's important about Installomator? Installomator is a list of, like Larry said, 1,026 different applications. And you can select any of those applications to be installed using a very simple one-line statement script inside of Jamf School. Okay? How many of you, and yeah, there's the normal ones, right? All the Google stuff, yeah, it's in there. All the Microsoft stuff, yeah, it's in there. How many of you have STEM labs that have 3D printers? A couple of you, yeah. Those 3D printers, you've probably heard of an application called Bamboo Lab as a slicer or Orca slicer. Guess what? Both of those slicers for 3D printers, Installomator has them. So, with Installomator, you can create a very simple script within Jamf School. And that very simple script allows you, notice it's one line, sudo user local installomator, in this case, installomator.sh Evernote. This will install Evernote one time on the computers that you've scoped it to. But Nick, what about updates? You want to do updates? Cool. See the little drop-down menu there that says just once? Drop that down and do it weekly. And then you'll get updated versions of that software installed weekly. Installomator is built to always look for the newest version. And by default, it will not override. If the current version already exists on the computer, it'll just go, nope, I don't have to do anything, we're good. So if you run it weekly and there's no update to Orca Slicer or Bamboo Lab or R or any of the other random stuff that you find on the list, guess what? It'll stop there and then run the next week and check to see if there's anything that needs to update. To Larry's point from earlier, right? Does the day end in Y? Is Google addressing something with an update? Yeah, cool. Switch that menu to daily if you really want to go that hard, and it will update Google Chrome daily. Now, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't recommend that given people don't like change, and updating something too frequently can cause some issues, right? So know your audience, you know the users that you support. If you have to swap out Google Chrome every day on them, they're probably not going to be very happy with you, okay? But being able to run it weekly to make sure you're up to date, not a bad idea. If you have a question and you're like, man, I left and I don't remember some of the stuff that Nick said. Larry and some other random guy, I don't know who that is, created a blog entry a while back about using Installomator with Jamf School. This is the link to that, so if you want, feel free to grab the QR code for that. You are more than welcome to peruse that as necessary. The content that's there has not changed in recent memory. The process is very straightforward and very easy, okay? With that, we're gonna open it up to questions. So Larry's info, me, my info, Matt's info. One quick note while we're getting set up for questions. I do want to let you know that I also have had the opportunity to play with a Cambrionix switch back in the day. And for me, it's about what is your time worth, okay? If you're one of those groups that has a bunch of iPads and you have to cycle them maybe every quarter, plug 4 of those into a Mac Mini and just go to town. I was at an Apple conference where we had a bunch of iPads hanging out, and we needed to refresh them for the next lab in the conference. 10 minutes. 100 iPads, they were all plugged into the same Mac Mini, different Cambrionix switches, boom, done. What is your time worth to you? Okay. Cool. What questions do you have?
Yes, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and I'll come with the microphone.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, let's give Nick a hand. I think Nick did an outstanding job. Do you see why I picked him?
Larry did all the work.
This may be a simple solution, but MAC addresses are no longer on the boxes. And if you have a network access control that requires you to get the MAC address, so you're going to have to touch something. Is there a way around that?
So my first stop on that would actually be with your Apple rep, because when Apple ships you those boxes, they have a fair amount of information about the devices that you're receiving. Check and see if they can get you additional information as part of the shipping information that comes to you.
Nick, go ahead.
Oh no, that's fine. The second thing that I would mention, yeah, the second thing that I would mention is, just as an aside, make sure that when you're deploying for your network, you've got MAC address randomization turned off. Yeah, because otherwise nothing's going to connect.
It'll work the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the other things I would stress to you is, so you do know that Macs are part of the inventory process, so you can actually look at the network. If you go to your inventory of your device and go to network, you should see information about the device, the IP address, the MAC addresses, things like that. So the MAC addresses are in inventory. So the question becomes, how do we get them out of inventory from Jamf School to something else? So in today's keynote, they said something called API. Jamf School has an API. So what you could look at, depending on how fast you want to do automation and things like that, you could look at an API data mine of it, getting that information, and then passing that information over. And the reason I say this is we work with a number of vendors that do help desk ticketing systems and inventory management systems, and we pull that information, we just directly dump it. We don't want you to key information. We want you to basically be able to mine it, get it out, get it going. API might be a good solution for you in that case, because you could pull it. Pardon me? Well, you'll be pulling it out when the device sends its inventory up to the console. So the question then becomes, are you going to have an onboarding SSID that doesn't allow that? Some organizations will actually set up onboarding IDs, especially those that have, for their configuration, certificate-based or 802.1x kind of approach. So you would go in that case. But again, once we data mine that data, then you can set that thing up to constantly be updating that resource. And again, it just depends on where that information, how you want that information delivered, and can the destination accept that information. Some do, some don't. So does that answer your question? Is that helpful here? Excellent. Anyone else? Up in the back. And my shirt size is 2X, and my favorite color is money, by the way.
That's good. Hey, just a quick question. Could you go back to the slide where you had the optimizing privacy? I can't remember. It was right before you gave it to.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
We go with the kind of the troubleshooting
Yes,
approach.
that
and
one.
elements like that. Yeah. So again, we always want to go with the latest and the greatest, correct?
Yes.
We always want to use watch paths. Just out of curiosity, why would you want to use a watch path? How many of you have ever installed an application and guess what? It ain't there. It's one of those things, it's kind of like, I've been married to my wife for 40 years. The other day she asked me, have you mowed the lawn? I said, absolutely. She went outside and she goes, no, you haven't. My wife was the watch path. What did she do? She went outside and saw the grass was actually covering our little beagle. You couldn't see our beagle because the grass was so high. Even though I told her I mowed the yard, she went and she was the watch path to make sure it was done. Watch paths are your best friend. And again, as Nick pointed out, app installers, because remember, I put the latest version of Chrome on, right? What happens next Tuesday? New version of Chrome's probably going to be out. We want to keep updating these things. The more you can automate, the term that Nick used when I was going through one of his classes is he said, I want to give you your weekends back. I don't want you up at the school. I don't want you up at the business working on the weekends. So if you can automate. And the other part I'll stress to you is, why automation? If you make a mistake in automation one time and you deploy it out to 20,000 clients, how many mistakes do you have? You really have one mistake. It's 20,000 times. And when you figure out how to fix that mistake, it's easy to do. If you do it manually and you have 20,000 devices, how many mistakes do you have? You have 20,000 mistakes, and everyone has to be corrected. So, does that answer your question, sir? Excellent. Anyone else? Well, I'm going to give a shameless plug. Nick and I are doing labs, hands-on labs. We're going to be covering some basic functionality, walking you through simulations on the basic configuration, not the Jamf Setup Manager. I also have some brain dates available. I apologize, I was supposed to have a brain date this morning, but the keynote, we got caught by the keynote and I wasn't able to attend. So if you're that individual, please come see me. I'll make accommodations for you. But please feel free to schedule time with me or Nick, or if you have questions about Cambrionix and some of the stuff it can do, go by their booth, see if you can schedule a brain date with Matt. I mean, again, that's why we're here. We want to empower you and make sure that you have the best possible resources. And that being said, I think if that's the case, we're in a good spot. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We finished 6 minutes early. Well, yeah, it's because I'm automated. You know?
All right, thank you all very much for your time.
It's been a pleasure. We'll be waiting here a few minutes if any of you have some questions and want to come and ask us. Thank you for attending. Have a great JNUC. And if you have any questions about Cambrionix, you can find the people in the blue Cambrionix shirts. Have a great show.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.